In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro delves into a wide-ranging discussion centered on the recent passage of President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill in the Senate, the ensuing political battles within the Republican Party, the escalating feud between Trump and Elon Musk, and the broader cultural and economic challenges facing America today. The episode also touches on the rising influence of radical left-wing figures like Zoran Mandani within the Democratic Party, the state of American patriotism, and the looming economic threats posed by a weakening dollar and technological disruption. The episode opens with an analysis of the Senate's narrow passage of President Trump's major legislative package, which enshrines permanent tax cuts, includes significant defense and border security funding, and imposes cuts on Medicaid and clean energy subsidies. The bill passed with a 51-50 vote, Vice President Harris casting the tie-breaking vote, after Republicans lost 3 key votes from Senators Rand Paul, Tom Tillis, and Susan Collins. J.D. Vance's decisive vote helped secure the bill's passage. Shapiro explains that the bill's core achievement is making permanent the Trump-era tax cuts, which had been set to expire. However, the bill's passage required offsetting these tax cuts with spending cuts, particularly in Medicaid and social safety net programs, due to the arcane rules of baseline budgeting. This accounting method assumes tax cuts will expire, so continuing them is treated as a deficit increase, necessitating cuts elsewhere. The bill also includes work requirements for able-bodied adults on food stamps and Medicaid, a rollback of clean energy tax credits, especially for wind and solar, and increased funding for defense, border enforcement, and missile defense systems. The clean energy rollback has sparked a rift within the Republican coalition, pitting tech-focused Republicans and industry figures like Elon Musk against populist conservatives who favor traditional energy sources like coal. Despite the Senate's success, Shapiro notes that the bill faces an uphill battle in the House, where moderate Republicans worry about Medicaid cuts and fiscal hawks oppose the $5 trillion debt ceiling increase. The bill's passage is emblematic of the compromises and pork-barrel politics that characterize major legislation, with last-minute concessions made to sway holdout senators. A major focus of the episode is the escalating conflict between President Trump and Elon Musk. Musk has vocally opposed the bill, particularly its elimination of electric vehicle subsidies and the rollback of clean energy incentives. He has threatened to primary Republican lawmakers who support the bill and has pledged to back Thomas Massie, a libertarian-leaning congressman known for opposing Trump's agenda. Trump fired back, accusing Musk of being heavily subsidized by the government, and suggested that without these subsidies, Musk's companies like Tesla and SpaceX would struggle to survive. The feud is not just about policy, but also personal grievances, including Musk's anger over the Trump administration's removal of his hand-picked NASA administrator. Shapiro contextualizes this fight as a clash between Musk's ideological purism, favoring deregulation and minimal government spending, and Trump's pragmatic approach, which embraces big spending to secure permanent tax cuts and fund defense and immigration enforcement. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent weighed in, emphasizing that while Musk is a visionary in technology, managing the nation's finances is a separate responsibility. The episode also highlights how Steve Bannon has seized on this feud to drive a wedge within the Republican Party, positioning himself closer to Trump by attacking Musk's libertarian leanings. Shapiro underscores that while Musk's concerns about government waste and spending are valid, the political reality is that the American public is not ready for the deep entitlement reforms Musk advocates. Shifting gears, Shapiro discusses the growing prominence of Zoran Mandani, a radical left-wing figure poised to become mayor of New York City. Mandani openly embraces anti-American sentiments, proudly adopting a third-world perspective and advocating for socialist policies such as government-run grocery stores. Despite his elitist background and privileged upbringing, Mandani portrays himself as a man of the people, a narrative Shapiro challenges. The episode highlights how Mandani's brand of left-wing politics, which includes support for BDS, boycott, divest, sanction, movements against Israel, and calls for dismantling American institutions, is increasingly embraced by factions within the Democratic Party. Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont and media figures like Taylor Lorenz have praised Mandani, while more moderate Democrats and commentators like Stephen A. Smith warn that this radicalism threatens the party's electoral viability. Shapiro contrasts this with the broader decline in American pride among Democrats, citing a Gallup poll showing only 36% of Democrats express strong pride in being American, a sharp drop from previous years. This anti-Americanism, he argues, is a defining feature of the Zoran Mandani wing of the party, which views America as a fundamentally negative force in the world. The episode then turns to economic issues, with Shapiro expressing concern about the weakening U.S. dollar, which has fallen over 10% against major currencies in the past 6 months, the worst start since 1973. This decline threatens investor confidence, raises import costs, and could undermine the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency, complicating America's ability to finance its debt. Shapiro also discusses the disruptive impact of artificial intelligence and automation on the labor market. He cites the example of Amazon's warehouses, where robots now nearly equal the number of human workers, signaling significant job displacement ahead. While technological advances may boost productivity and create new jobs, the transition period could provoke social unrest and fuel radical political movements like those embodied by Mandani. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's recent comments are noted, with Powell acknowledging the economy's relative strength and signaling potential interest rate cuts later in the year. Powell's independence from political pressure, including from Trump, is seen as a positive sign for economic stability. Shapiro critiques the entertainment industry's push to inject woke ideology into children's programming, focusing on Pixar's recent box office failure, Elio. Originally conceived as a queer-coded story by an openly gay director, the film was reworked after negative feedback, resulting in a confused and underwhelming final product. This failure is emblematic of the broader go woke, go broke phenomenon, where ideological agendas alienate mainstream audiences. Finally, Shapiro reflects on the true meaning of July 4th, emphasizing that America is not merely a democracy, but a constitutional republic designed to protect individual liberties against the tyranny of the majority. He underscores the founders' intent to enshrine fundamental rights beyond the reach of popular vote, warning against the dangers of unchecked majoritarianism and the erosion of constitutional checks and balances.